It's 1 o'clock on Thursday, so you know what that means. You know that it means we are here and live for the True Colors podcast. This is episode number 7. Episode number 7, bringing it to you as we have every week for the last 7 weeks. This is True Colors podcast. I am your host and your artistic director, Mr. Jamil Jude. I don't know why I just called myself Mr., but I kind of like it. I've had students all last week for the True Colors podcast. We had students on who were part of the August Wilson Monologue competition that we held over the weekend, a virtual event where we celebrated high school students all across the nation in 16 different cities. Students who had been competing in their different regions joined us on a Zoom call on Saturday and Sunday, where they had opportunity to talk to Kenny Leon and Todd Kryler and Costanza Romero Wilson and Stephen McKinley Henderson and David Gallo, a set designer extraordinaire. They also had a chance to talk to Jack Vertel, who is one of the bigwigs over at the August Wilson Theater on Broadway. They were also visited by Rosalind Ruff and Russell Hornsby. So those students had a really great time. I say all that to say that those students have been calling me Mr. Jamil. So maybe that's what was in my head and why I decided to start off the podcast that way. But anyway, today is a really amazing podcast. We have a couple of things for you. I've been joined by guests. I've been lucky enough to have guests on for the last several weeks. And our guest today is Emmy award-winning Denise Burse. So we're really happy to have Miss Denise on with us a little bit later. Also, we're going to be giving away our flower giveaway. We have been really blessed to have Miss Stevie Flowers as part of our True Colors family for the last several years, where she's been doing beautiful flower arrangements for us at our events, namely our Ovation Circle or True Colors Applause events. So her beautiful flowers, if you have not seen it, go to our post, take a look at her flower arrangements, and we're going to be giving that out today live as well. I got a couple of things that I want to plug. Next weekend on Saturday, we are going to have our community conversation. As you guys know, we do these community events as part of our work to thrive at the intersection of artistic excellence and civic engagement. Normally, we would be preparing for a show. Right now, we would be gearing up for first rehearsal of Marie and Rosetta. And because of the circumstances that have all of us in our houses right now, I hope you all are staying safe wherever you are. We have decided to take our community conversation online and make it a virtual event. So our community conversation, Unsung Sheroes, will happen online on the 16th of May. That is next Saturday. So check on our website, truecolorstheater.org, for all the information about the Unsung Sheroes community conversation that we will host. Next week, I will be interviewing our host for the Unsung Sheroes, Clarissa Crawford, Associate Producer over at True Colors. She is a community activist. She's been doing a lot of great work here in the Atlanta area. So please look out for that next week, both the True Colors podcast, episode 8, when I'll have Clarissa on, but also on the 16th of May when we host our Unsung Sheroes community conversation, where we'll be talking about women who often get overlooked in history, in the annals of history. We want to make sure in this season where we're celebrating she griots that we do not do that. We want to make sure that we celebrate people and give them their flowers while they can still receive them. So, speaking of flowers, I have in my handy dandy copper bowl. Yes. I wanted to have an opportunity to give away some of Stevie's flowers. So thank you all for who participated in the She Griots Challenge and tagged and told a story about the amazing moms or mother figures in their lives. We are hooking you guys up with the flower arrangement to be delivered in time for Mother's Day this Sunday. I got to go get my gifts for my mothers, the mothers in my life. So I have today, guys, forgive me because I had to tear the paper and write everybody's name down. But I'm happy to announce that the winner of Miss Stevie's Flowers, the Stevie Flowers giveaway, is Miss Mary Hasty. Miss Mary Hasty. That's my bad handwriting, but Mary Hasty, congratulations. You are the winner of Stevie's Flowers. We will be in touch with you later today to make sure that you get your flowers. So thank you very much for participating with us. And we are happy that you sent us a story about your mom in your life. And I know that your mother passed away, but we're really happy to honor you and thank you for participating. But happy Mother's Day to you. Happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there. We hope to have you back when we all gather. We want to celebrate and want to God send you love. Again, this is another plug for the Unsung Sheroes community conversation that we'll host online Zoom. And that'll be on May 16th. I see a couple people that we have joined. Thank you very much to Destiny. What's up, Destiny? Destiny from Schoolgirls at African Mean Girls play. You all remember her. She played Amma, and she did a really great job. I see one of our former True Colors employees, Victoria. Thank you very much for signing on. It's really good to see you. The Black Lady Theater. Okay, what's up, Black Lady Theater? Thanks for signing on. Thanks for signing on. And welcome back, Nami. Like I said, you all, today my guest is Denise Burse. So we're really excited to talk to her. And I just really wanted an opportunity to talk a little bit more about this moment. I've been getting slightly political here on the True Colors podcast. And I don't apologize for it. Here at True Colors, we live our values. And if we are really going to talk about art in our community, if we're really going to talk about excellence in our community, we really got to talk about the ways our community is impacted. So I just want another opportunity to say, hey, y'all, I know that communities are starting to open back up right now all across the nation. And if you are listening to this, whether right now live or if you come back to this a little bit later, do your part. Listen to the guidelines. Listen to the CDC. Listen to the health officials in your area. Politicians and business people are going to say a thing, and our health officials are going to tell us another thing. Science is our friend in this. Stay safe, because we want to be back in community with you. We want to have you back to tell stories to one another. And the best way we can do that is if you stay safe and continue to seek shelter and continue to socially isolate if and when you have to go out. For all of our essential workers and all the people who are our frontline workers, I'm praying for you. I'm wishing you the best. I'm wishing you health and sanity as you continue to navigate through this. But for those of you all who have the choice and have the option to stay at home, please do that so that we can get back together, okay? All right, now that I've done my political spiel, now it is time to welcome our guest of the day. We are really, really happy to the True Colors podcast, Miss Denise Burse, Emmy award-winning actress, Miss Denise Burse. Last time you saw Miss Burse, she was on stage with us for Dot, Coleman Domingo's Dot. That was in the summer of 2018, Denise?
Yes, yes, it was.
Well, welcome back. Hey, how are you? Good to see you.
Hi, how are you, Jamil? I'm good. I'm real good.
Good,
How's
good,
everything going in Atlanta?
Things are good. Things are good. I am staying my black ass home because I do not, I am not going to let,
Right.
some of the challenges that are facing our communities here in Georgia, take the best of me. But I am appreciative of you. I want to take advantage of your time. And I know our patrons are going to be really, really happy to hear from you as well. So
Thank
Denise,
you.
let's just get right into it. Tell us, what made you want to become an actress? Like, what was it like? It's like, okay, I'm going to tell stories on stage, on screen. I want to be a storyteller.
I think it started very early in life when I was a kid. We used to spend a lot of time with my maternal grandmother. And on days when we could not go outside and play, I grew up in Atlanta, so, it was always outdoor time. And much of my time was spent outdoors with my siblings and my first cousins. And she had a garden, and so we would go out and we'd pick pecans off the tree and peaches and apples, and she grew her own vegetables and the like. But on days when we could not go outside to play, she would always have us entertain her. And you could sing, you could dance, you could act, you could do whatever you wanted to. Sometimes she fell asleep mid-performance, but I think it started as early as that. And I must have been 5, 6, 4, 5, somewhere those formative years when you're thinking about what you want to become. And it changed as I got older. Sometimes I would think, oh no, I'll be a doctor or a lawyer or whatever. But underneath that, it was always the desire to use my imagination to create things, to bring things to life. So I think it started very early on for me.
That's great. That's great. And so now let's talk about some of those career milestones. I think all of us have had that moment where you recognize like, oh, okay, I can do this. I can make a living. I'm good at it. Other people are telling me
Right.
I'm good, but you also have to feel it yourself that, you deserve to be there. Can you talk about some of those milestones along your career that just reaffirmed to you that those initial impulses you had were the right ones?
Sure. I think for me, I tend to be very cautious anyway, personally. That's just my personality in most things that I do in life. But so I started out acting and also teaching. So I taught for a very long time and early on in my career. And then once I got a job as a professional actor, and professional in the sense that I had to join the union,
Mhm.
then I knew. And I said to myself, I said, you're going to either have to commit full time to this now because you invested financially as well as artistically. And so at that point, I decided to stop teaching. Um, and I devoted the rest of the time to pursuing my career full time.
Was it
So that was,
scary?
yeah, but in, how should I say, in a really exciting way.
Hmm.
I'm a planner, so I started planning ahead of time how I was
Mm.
going to do it in
Hmm.
case, as jobs are sometimes far and few between. Um, I started planning so that I was in a position to take care of myself. And I hit some lean points where, it was like, am I going to have to go on food stamps? And so, I did for a short period of time when the unemployment ran out and I still had to eat. Um, and people said, well, why didn't you just go back home and stay with your parents? But I was an adult and, I valued my adult time and the fact that I had the privacy of my space. So, all of those issues forced me to hit the hard times, you know, full on, face
Yeah, yeah,
forward,
yeah.
and to figure out a way to rise above those times. So yeah,
Well,
I've seen the downside of it. Yeah.
well, and there's something I really just wanted to echo back. A couple things that you said. The first thing was that you planned, right? You had a plan in place so
Yeah.
that if and when you decided to make that leap and devote yourself fully to the theater career and not have the and not be a teacher anymore, that
Yeah.
that you were working on it for a while, but also that hey, sometimes you got a plan and the plan don't always get executed the same way, right? Like in that you hit a lean moment in there, but you continue to lean forward. And when there were people in your life possibly saying like, hey, take a chance or stop, go back, reset, you decide, you know what, hey, I am enjoying this space in my life where I have some independence and I'm going to lean on that
Yeah.
and see where that takes me. So I just wanted to echo that back
Yeah.
because I know that that's an important thing. There's so many people who listen to this podcast that we've known, especially early career artists, who are like, what do I do when I hit that stumbling block, when I hit that roadblock? So you're providing them a little bit of a roadmap
I,
there.
I, I think too that it's important to know that it is. It may very well happen, but it is also important to know that you can then lock into what your other skill sets are.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? And this is very key. I think in any industry, but particularly in ours, that relationships are extremely important. And there are times when You may not be the person chosen to perform the piece, but you might be asked to come in to actually audition with the other actors that they are going to see for the piece. So that is a way also, if you just want to stay in the industry umbrella, that you can make a little money. You can sometimes utilize theaters who also like you to do the whole call to solicit, sponsors and memberships. So there are ways to do it so you stay connected, but it also shows a loyalty to the various theater companies or the artistic directors or the directors or somebody who is a part of that family ongoing. And they'll say, next time she wasn't here or he wasn't here, but I know that they care about True Colors. I know that they care about New Federal Theater. I know that they care about the signature. So I'm going to remember that. And next time around, if it's something that they're right for, then I'm going to ask them in. I think relationships in instances where you are not at the top of your game in terms of employment are key to sustaining you, and they're key to you nurturing so that you can be sustained in the long run.
Yeah, I love some of the things that you're saying. We talked a couple episodes back and we've been revisiting it, that like I offered up that like artists find themselves in three stages of their career, and it's cyclical. So, you never really set at one point, you never reach a place and never go back. But one of the things we were talking to early career artists is like that idea of saying yes to learn, like say yes to
Yes.
those
Yeah.
opportunities, say yes to those companies that you're interested in. They'll find a place for you because there's always work to be done. Even in the middle of a pandemic, there's work to be done. And again, like you said, like it's those networks and social relationships. It's the person that you meet when you're volunteering and organizing and folding letters that decides that they want to start a theater company. And because you guys have a relationship, you're going to be in their play or something like that. But also another thing that you said, so there's that showcasing your skills stage. There's the exploring your aesthetic stage for mid-career artists. But then there's the sustaining your success, which is like artists who have, found some success and they want to keep it going. And I think you mentioned teaching, giving back, staying connected to
Yeah.
organizations, being in the room, showing up. Can you talk about, you've accomplished so much, and I definitely want to talk about what was it like to win an Emmy? What was it like to, have this, TV and theater career as well? But talk a little bit, just since we're here in this moment, about sustaining your success and staying sharp and staying on the top of your game.
Well, I think you hit upon all of the elements that are important. If you know that you're going to be out of the game for a period of time, say several weeks or several months even, and some people, and I say this with all sincerity, I think that it's unfortunate that some people have had a year-long drought. And I say that because I know what that feels like. I've had, I remember one year in fact, I think it was 2015, I was not working. And I mean, not working. The phone didn't even ring that often. And so I started to question whether or not I should even stay with it, because now you're in a position to say, well, should I change careers at this late in the game, or what should I do? So then you switch to things like, put your thoughts down. Maybe there's something there that can be developed into a one-woman piece, or that can be developed into something that you collaborate with another artist on, say a dancer or a musician, and then it becomes this whole other artistic expression. And that happened to me in 2015. And I remember distinctly when my agent called me, it was sometime early November. And this is leading into the Emmy scenario. They called and said that I had been offered a job to do a role on Black Mirror. And I thought, I didn't even know what Black Mirror was at the time, so I thought, what is that? And she said, oh, it's all the rage on Netflix. And I said, well, I have Netflix. Maybe I should, first of all, find
Check
out
it out.
And so I said, well, let me go on and find out what the show is and call you back. She said, okay. So I went online and pulled up the episode on Netflix, and it was the first episode of the season about the mayor and the pig, and I said, oh, no, I'm not doing
It's
that.
out there.
This is what the show is about. No, thank you. So I called her back and said, I don't think I'm interested. And she said, no, Denise, they really, really want you. They requested you personally. They are not even making you audition, da, 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 da. And I said, okay. She said, well, the director has called because you hadn't responded. And he asked if maybe you could Skype with him because he was in London. Okay. And I said, oh, yeah, I'd love to do that. And so we had a Skype meeting. I just absolutely adored him. And I told him once we were closing out the conversation that I would love to come and do it. He told me who some of the cast members were and that I would be playing the older version of Gugu and Baccarat. And I absolutely adore her. And so
Don't tell my wife I do too.
Well, I have seen some episodes and I just have to be frank. If I could see the script, it would help me a lot. So we said, oh yeah, it'll be there tomorrow. And so sure enough, I got the script and it was just a beautiful, beautiful story. And fast forward, we were all delighted with the work that took place on that shoot. It was a week in London and I think another week or so in South Africa. And at the end of the day, we left, we hugged, and it was over. Little did we know that the Emmys would even consider the show because there was just so much. There was so many other stories that were so intense, but it resonated in a way with the viewers that I think Netflix took notice of. And as a result, the industry also paid a lot of attention to it. And so it was an ensemble piece. The playwright, the writer won. And as the cast, we all were winners. So we got the Emmy for the episode San Junipero, and it was amazing. It was an incredible experience. It was obviously my first on the national scale like that, and my takeaway was that it's an experience I will never forget. I am so grateful that I had the opportunity, and I'm so mindful of. And I say this to those of us who are Christian, who are believers, and who have a standard that we set in terms of the kind of work we will and won't do. I say that I know God gave me that gift at the end of the year because it came at a point when I was so low and so in such a dry spot, that a dry place, that I was starting to question whether or not I should even be doing what I was doing as a performer. And so I'm grateful that I prayed about it and listened to it and followed the guidelines that God set before me. And I'm telling you, the gift was greater than the one that was in front of me. You know, I thought it was just to be able to do the job, but you know, it kept on giving. And even to this day, when people sometimes see me, or some friends will say, oh, you know her from, and they immediately go, oh my God, that was one of my favorites. So, you know, it's a gift that keeps on giving. And the same thing is true for my time in Atlanta. And even after I moved to New York, my mother became very, very ill in 2006. And she had a major operation, and I was going back and forth from New York to Atlanta on a regular basis. And to the point that, you know, I was drying up our savings, and I could see my husband Peter going like, but he would never say no because he knew it was important for me to be there. And I remember sitting at her kitchen table one night after I had fed them and put them to bed and all of that. And I cried out, I need a job. God, I need it in Atlanta. And I need it to be the kind of job that will rekindle my career, but at the same time give me the opportunity to actually shelter here for a period of time to make sure that they're strong enough and healthy enough to be on their own again. And for me to refill the coffers that, you know, my husband had just so generously allowed me to really use. going back and forth. And I got a call from my agent saying that Tyler Perry was getting ready to do House of Pain, and they wanted me to put myself on tape. I did that. They did the pilot, I think, in late October, early November, and it aired sometime in December, January. And I was cast as a recurring character on that show. And so again, though, it was God answering a prayer that I needed something artistically, but for a different reason other than just the accolades of doing the work. I needed to be in a place that would allow me to shelter in Atlanta for a period of time. And as I said, be a productive member of my marriage in order to support what we had been building. And he answered that prayer. I mean, he answered it tenfold. So I'm forever grateful to Tyler Perry and his crew, and the opportunity that I was granted, and I still get the benefits of that to this day, which is a real blessing. I mean, it's a real blessing. Sometimes you have to wait a long time, but if you believe that God is hearing you, and He does, and if you believe that you are hearing Him and you trust Him, then you can respond in a way that says, this was the choice that you should make. This is the one that you should do. So those were my two major milestones that came at points that, I had some lags in between jobs, and that was a crisis point, even though I was working fairly well between 2004 and 2006. It only takes one situation to really deplete your income, and then you're right back in the same position. And so those two, the long dry spell in 2015 and the crisis with my mother in 2006 they were major.
Well, and Denise, thank you for sharing that. I mean, like, I just think your vulnerability is so important for people, because I think oftentimes people see career trajectories as something that's linear, right? Like that it goes, it starts here and it just goes up, right? Like, but it's important to tell people, like, no, there are ebbs and flows, and then life happens, right? Like, and in marriages and partnerships and families, and you have to navigate all those things and navigate a career, and sometimes those things don't always line up. And when they do, we are always, we're thankful for them, and we thank God, we thank our spiritual practice, whatever it is that you align yourself with. It's just important to be connected to that. I do want to talk a little bit, though, if it's okay to shift. I want to talk a little bit about your long-term relationship with True Colors. Like, you've been with us as a family member for a long time. Can you just remind people of just like how long your relationship with True Colors has been?
Well, actually, I was in the inaugural production of Fences, which
the first production at True Colors Theater. Yes.
Yeah. Kenny and I go way back. We were students in the AU Center. We performed under Joan Lewis's tutelage. God rest her soul. So we've known each other for a very long time. And I remember when Kenny switched from acting, because he started out as an actor. And I remember when he switched from being an actor to becoming a director. And I did a couple of pieces at the Alliance when he was there as artistic director. And when he struck out on his own, I was so excited for him and so proud. I was like, this is a huge step. And he said, yeah, it is. And I am calling on the people that I know well, that I've worked with before, to be a part of the first production at True Colors. And it was Fences, August Wilson's Fences. And I remember Eugene Lee played Troy.
Yep.
And
to your
Cameron,
rose.
Cameron was live. It was an amazing opportunity again. And so I've been involved with True Colors
Yeah.
since day one. You know,
You know,
Jane was still alive, and she was very close to me because I worked with her at the Alliance Theater on several productions there.
Jane Bishop, co-founder of True Colors. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
You know,
So
so you have an interesting distinction that you were in the first show directed by Kenny Leon at True Colors Theater Company,
yeah,
and up until now, you were a member of the last show Kenny Leon directed
I know.
at True
I know.
Colors with Dot. So you have
I
an
know. I
interesting,
had a huge bookend, lots of
yeah,
things in between, but that was
yeah.
a beautiful bookend for me. Yeah, yeah, to
Well,
start it with him and to finish it with him. But I also had the opportunity when we came to do um, Dot in New York,
yeah.
that it was my first opportunity to work with you.
Oh,
So
yeah, yeah, yeah.
hopefully I'll be back while you're at the helm and
Absolutely.
have an opportunity to work with you again full on. So
Yes,
yeah,
ma'am. When we open this thing back up, I can't wait to invite you back here
it would be
to
my
Atlanta.
delight to come. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about Dot a little bit.
Okay.
Dot, a play set in Philadelphia, written by Coleman Domingo. It is a family story. It is a story of a woman named Dottie, who is widowed and is learning to live with Alzheimer's, right? Like she has three very distinct children,
Yeah.
all of them trying to find their ways into understanding life now.
Yeah.
Um, and you were joined on stage by some of True Color's favorite actors, Tinashe Kadese Bolden, Amber A. Harris, Gilbert Brown, Ren
Well,
Saver, Benedetto Robinson, um, uh, Leo Sorio. Denise, tell us a little bit about Dottie and about that experience, bringing her to stage. Yeah.
um, I had to really pray about that one because my stepfather had just died the year before from Alzheimer's. And so when Kenny called me and asked me if I was interested, I said, let me call you back. Let me give it a thought. Um, because I wanted some time to really decide whether or not I knew it was a beautiful part. I love Coleman. I mean, he's a dear friend. But I knew that I was going to go inside myself to try and um, pull the things that I had experienced in caring for my stepfather. He navigated that journey. And I didn't know if I was really ready to do that because it was just a year later. And so I thought about it and I prayed about it. And he said, you owe it to yourself
Mm,
and you owe it to the community to acknowledge the experience uh, artistically in a way that you can create something that has been written by a friend that has some pathos and some humor and some truth as to what it feels like for a family to recognize this diagnosis in another member and try to determine how to navigate it now for their care and for also for their own personal well-being. Um, I was Shelley in our
hmm
family,
hmm
and so um,
And just
I
for those who
love
didn't get a chance to see the show, Shelley was
Shelley.
the daughter, the oldest
Shelley is the
daughter.
daughter
Yeah,
who
and
has taken it upon herself
hmm
to provide for her mother, to make sure she has care, to make sure that someone is there when she has to be at work. In other words, putting all the essential elements in place to allow her mother the best possible
hmm
experience while she tries to figure out how to navigate this and to try and make her safe as well. Um, so I was that person. And so to switch gears now and then go back and try and be as compassionate and delve as deeply as I possibly could to the experience that I had with my stepfather and the times when I could see him struggling to when he could still communicate, to say the things that he couldn't really make his mind verbalize. Um, what it felt like for him when I would look at him and try and say, okay, I think I know what you're saying. And I would say something and his whole body would say, no, that's not what it was. And to also become keenly aware of that the person inside there is still vibrant and alive, but the brain has started to shut down in ways that they can't even describe to you. And they know it early on, the early stages, they know it, which is part of the anger that they feel when they lash out at you. It's, I'm cognizant of the fact that I'm not myself in terms of intellectualizing my thoughts to you. And that's a very sad place to find yourself in, and to have to experience that without really being able to do anything to help them. And I think that's a reality that chips away at you somehow, and unless you can find a way to let them know that you love them, that they're safe, that you're going to do everything possible to keep them safe, that even though they can't say it, you know that they're trying to tell you that they love you too, and that they're appreciative of what you're doing for them. And then once they become silent in terms of making cognitive communication, that's when you really have to try and determine what's going on in there. And that becomes the real challenge in terms of your responsibility and your possibility as the actor in terms of creating what that must have felt like, what that must have, how you can put that forward in terms of an audience being able to feel what that felt like. So
one of the comments, or some of the comments that we always received up for that show, was just how touching, how moving, just how honest your portrayal was. We had several people who brought parents who were learning to live with Alzheimer's in the audience, and sharing moments where they had their parents or family members kind of turn to them and with this look on their faces, like, hey, that's I can't share that, I can't tell you that, but how Dottie is feeling is how I'm feeling. Or we have people who talk about losing family members to that, in both places that we played, right? I know that was some of your experience after I left, but you guys still having that strong run at the Billie Holiday in New York, but definitely down here in Atlanta. And when I think about the type of theater that we profess to be, one that thrives at the intersection of artistic excellence and civic engagement, I really talk about that community impact, where we worked with Emory Brain and Health. Our community, the Black community, we are grossly affected by brain disorders, right? And degenerative cognitive challenges later in our lives, especially Black women. So I thought it was just so important that the way in which you cared about the character, the honesty that you displayed, the vulnerability you displayed every night in telling that story. And it really had an extremely, extremely profound and heartfelt effect on our audience. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you. I thank True Colors for the opportunity to do the part. And again, I say I'm grateful that I took the time to really listen and hear from God, that said you owe it to the community to provide an opportunity to see what it looks like when a family member is in this situation, and what it feels like for those family members who have to take that responsibility on to care and to provide care, to provide a safe haven for them. Because I knew that it was important for us to have the dialogue, because as a community, people of color don't like to talk about it, and oftentimes Because we don't talk about it, we don't get the professional help that is available, or we don't get the medical help that is available. And sometimes you can slow the progress if you'll talk about it openly and honestly and soon enough to to get those kinds of things in place. I think it's critical for us to stop hiding behind the fact that, you know, we think Black people are not affected, or for us to continue to be secret about the fact that it does impact our families, and rather than admitting that and seeking help and support, we not only suffer, but the person who's going through the experience suffers the most. And so we have to stop doing that. We have to stop doing it with any mental illness.
Yeah.
Any mental illness, because our community is being impacted in unbelievable numbers. You know, depression, schizophrenia, bipolar, all of those things that are affecting the larger community affect ours too, and sometimes in greater numbers, because we won't discuss it, and because we don't discuss it, we don't get the support and the kind of attention, medically professional support that we need and that is available to us. So I wanted to do it for that reason also. And as again, my choices, I would say 90% of the time, have not just been to experience the creative side of a piece. It's not just been to experience what it feels like to have the applause at the end of the evening. It's always been, I hope that something that I'm doing is providing a platform for people to see something that will impact them in a way that they can get some dialogue going, or they can say out loud to themselves and those around them, I know what that feels like. I know what that looks like. I'm in that experience now. And so it's always to help, to enlighten, not just to entertain, but to engage in a way that they take away something after the performance that will help them, that will provide some sort of map or road for them to navigate the experience. So that's always, and that was something that happened for me just this past December with Kenny Leon again. He did a show at Second Stage,
Second Stage,
and the character, one of the main characters that I played in that production, was an older woman, and she talks about the fact that she knows that she is at a place in her life where she's dying. She's up in age and she's in an assisted living home. And I drew from my mother, who died in an assisted living home in Atlanta from pancreatic cancer. And so she knew each day what it was that she wanted to say. She knew how she wanted to go. She refused any kind of painkillers or anything right until the very end. And so I knew from her, and she told my brother Burl, she said, I know that it's soon now, probably in the next few days. And she was right. She said that, I think, to him on a Friday, or maybe a Thursday night. And by Saturday, she was gone. So she knew she was that in touch with her body that she knew that things were starting to shut down, to break down for her. But she was lucid enough to be able to say, so that we were starting to prepare ourselves. And I sat with her as she transitioned, and I remember she was in so much discomfort. I begged her, I said, you really have to take something to relieve this pain that you're going through, because it's creating a kind of pain for me that I don't know that I can bear. And I knew that her crying out was causing pain for the other people around her in the other rooms. And so she finally said, okay. And the nurse came in and gave her some painkiller, and it was liquid form, so she could take it without, without it being a pill or anything like that. And as she quieted down, I could tell that she was. My grandmother used to say that there was a look where they stayed with you the whole time, that you could leave and go to another part of the room, but they would automatically turn to catch you, to make sure that they were looking into the eyes of the person who was there with them. And she closed her eyes, and that was that. So that experience was what I took to the role that Kenny asked me to do in Will Eno's play, The Underlying Chris. Yeah. So, I draw from my life, because I remember something that Helen Mirren said. She said, you can't act in front of a mirror, because then it's stagnant and it's fake, because you're looking at yourself while you're doing it, as opposed to you stepping away and quietly understanding the words on the page and bringing that to life, so that it comes out of you organically. And the experiences that you've had in your life start to flesh it out, put some meat on those bones that make it very real and personal. And I think you've said it several times, Jamil, that the heart of that is to be open and honest enough that you allow yourself the vulnerability to create the character the way the playwright has put it on the page. And if you're lucky enough to have a living playwright in the room with you, you can discuss the things that you're experiencing and want to add to that scripted page in a way that that really gives it a three-dimensional story platform. So vulnerability is absolutely key, and some of us are too closed off to allow that to happen, but it's key.
And I think, like you talked about, just a couple things, just to echo back, Miss Erica Renee has said here that, your situation reminded them a similar way that their father passed away from cancer. So just wanted to say, your vulnerability once again is allowing people to touch and access things and experiences in their own life. And like the arts being and arts workers like you, like, some of the work is healing work, right? Like, I mean, it's the healing of ourselves. It's
much of my experience has been cathartic in that it allowed me to revisit experiences that were very painful, that I sort of put a lid on, because I knew that I had to do things to take care of situations that resulted from the loss. So I didn't allow myself to grieve openly and publicly. I was too busy trying to get the business side of it done that I closed myself off emotionally. And sometimes, that's when the floodgates open up. You can be standing in the supermarket in front of the produce section, and all of a sudden you find yourself saying, "Oh my God, my mother loved peaches," and everybody around you is like, "What? What's the matter? Are you okay?" And so what you thought would be a very private moment then becomes very public. But I'm okay with that. Everybody has to grieve in their own way, and sometimes I take longer than others, because I take on the responsibility of taking care of the business as opposed to taking care of myself right away. And I'm trying to learn to do better about that. I think the quarantine has allowed me some time to really reflect on some things, and allowed me some time to say, I'm important enough that sometimes I come first, and people don't always accept that. And especially if they've known you for any period or any length of time, they automatically have come to expect a certain response. And when they don't get that, then it becomes, oh my God, why can't you talk to me right now? Can't you do it right away? But I've learned to say, I'm important too. And if I don't think that I can take care of it right now, because I need to take care of something for myself, I'm really prepared to say that now, and I didn't always do that. So the quarantine has helped me get to a place where I'm honest enough and bold enough to be able to say I can come first too. Every now and then, it's important for me to take care of me before I take care of you. So,
That's great.
um,
We got
you know,
we have like a
information comes late sometimes, or comes in a different form, if you will. But as long as it comes and you accept the fact that it's a lesson learned, then you can move forward with that.
I love it. I love it. So, we just to put the last like 10 minutes or so that we have remaining, just want to remind viewers, if you have a question, drop a question. But, this upcoming weekend, you know, holidays, but especially Mother's Day, it can be hard, right,
Mhm.
for so many people. Um, and your journey has inspired so many people, even on this podcast. You've inspired some people just to connect with the hurt and the pain and the
Yeah,
grief
and it's
in their
important
life.
to do that. I
And
mean,
yeah,
it's a process, but yeah.
and I just wanted to say, like, I would love if we could end this with like touching and talking to people who have experienced loss, especially on weekends like this that are hard for them. If you could say something to them, and then maybe end with um, a a memory that still makes you smile of your mom, so that we can take that into this weekend too, just to be reminded that there are still things that bring smiles to our faces when we think about those that we've lost.
Um, I guess for me, it would be my mother had some talents. She was a teacher before she became a principal. And so um, early on, when we were really little, she would um, she would always make a brand new Easter outfit for us, because she was an incredible seamstress and designer, really, because she could make her own patterns. She would take us shopping, and she would say, "What is it that you like?" And I used to think that it was because she couldn't afford the piece, but I know that's not true. I think it was because it allowed her creativity that she didn't pursue as a career, although she could have
Mhm.
had one, um, to make something from scratch for us. And when I say from scratch, she would take us, she would she would let us try it on. She would see how we looked in the outfit, and then she would go home and cut the pattern out. She had rolled rings of brown paper and newspapers that she would save, and she would cut the pattern out. She would choose the fabric. She would ask us what color we wanted, and all of that. And she would choose the fabric. She would design and stitch and sew. And when you saw it on the morning, Easter morning, usually, um, it looked as good, if not better, than the outfit that you had tried on in the department store. And I can remember that up until the time that I was about 9, or 10, maybe, somewhere in there, when she stopped, because I would make such a fit about I wanted to be able to go to the store and shop, and pick up my outfit and take it home. But up until that, so now on Mother's Day and other times, um, I'm really excited about the fact that those are the kinds of memories that I have of her making something for me from scratch that I could wear and wear over and over again until I outgrew it. And I'm not talking about just a simple dress. I'm talking about a dress, the coat, and oftentimes she would do a hat, a hairpiece, a hat of some sort.
Mhm.
So that all she ended up buying usually were the stockings and the shoes and the purse. But it was just amazing to watch her do that year after year. And like I said, from the time that I can remember, from the time that we were like 4 or 5, up until the time that I was about 9 or 10. And she did it again. Oh, she did it again when I was in junior high, and we had the little spring dance,
Mhm.
and I wanted a dress, And she said, why don't I make you one? And she took a dress that she had had. It was the most beautiful piece. And she cut it down to fit me so that I got to wear that to the junior senior dance in grade school. And I was just over the moon because I thought I was the most fabulously worn dress there that night, of course. And she did it again, I think, when I was in my senior year of high school before I went away to college. She made me some things to take with me. But I had gotten to a place where I thought I wanted all the things that I took with me to be those that I picked out from the department store. But she gave me such a sense of style in the sense that I added pieces to the pieces that I chose that she had made for me. And I never stopped getting compliments on the way that the piece looked because of the pieces that she added. So those are the kind of memories that I had. And anytime I hear a string instrument, I think of her because she taught the orchestra in high school before she became a principal and an elementary school principal at that, interestingly enough. But so, I think you have to live the moments that were most vibrant and alive and loving and positive, because that's the way they should be remembered: alive and vibrant and loving and positive. And that way you minimize, I think, the time that you spend missing them in a sad way, as opposed to celebrating them in a very vibrant way. So that would be my give to you to take away. That's how I have started to do. I mean, I get sad, obviously, because I miss her. There's no question about that. But the days that that I can spend remembering the way that I just described to you about the memories that I try to draw from, I think those are the things that are important to do.
Well, Denise, thank you so much just for being with us and spending an hour chatting with us, talking about your career, about the highlights, about the challenges, but the way you've persevered, talking about the balance of family and career, and how when you lean in on faith and when you trust not just the work that you've been putting into, but you have a system and a support system around you, that the things happen. But also thank you in this time when we are celebrating our She Griots and the women who have impacted our lives. Thank you just for your honesty and your openness to be able to share the impact of your mom and how you've been able to live her and her spirit in your work. So just thank you very, very much. Thank you for everyone who tuned in to episode 7 of the True Colors podcast.
Yeah.
We'll be back here again next week at 1 p.m. I'll be talking to Clarissa Crawford as we celebrate some unsung sheroes in our lives next week for the community conversation. Like anything, go to truecolorstheater.org. Check us out there. Find out about what we are doing. We have been loving doing this, and really the best part of my job every week is getting opportunity to talk to wonderful people like
Does
Denise.
this re-air at all?
Yeah. So we're going to put it back on here on Instagram Live so people can go back and check it out. You can link to it. We'll put it on YouTube. We'll put it on truecolorstheater.org.
I'll try to do some postings to let people know who couldn't do it at 1 today, that they can actually go in and see it again later on today. Thank you, Jamil. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much. As you know, the first time we talked, I was a little reluctant because I thought, I'm not going to say it, do I mean, like, but thank you for having me. It's been my great pleasure. I hope that I was able to communicate some things to those who were listening in, who tuned in while we were live. That was helpful. I always want to be helpful.
Yes.
So I hope that I was helpful. And it's been helpful for me. I mean that sincerely. So thank you for having me, for allowing me to talk about some experiences that that I'm still working through, believe it or not. We're going to celebrate Mother's Day this coming weekend. And so I know that throughout the week, I will start to reflect on some